Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I want to talk to you about when fasting is a bad idea. So the reason I'm making this video is I love fasting. Fasting is one of the things I try to use wherever possible. I use it personally in my own life and in my own healing. Currently, I'm very frequently doing a 36-hour fast every Friday. There's been some occasions where I haven't done this over the last couple of months, but at the time of recording this, we're a couple of days away from the new year, 2025, and of the 52 weeks in 2024, I have fasted for 42 of them. So that's a pretty solid amount. This is also one of the tools I use a lot with my coaching clients. The reason being, it just works for almost everything. However, there are certain situations where fasting is a bad idea, and I want to help explain what those contexts are and what we can do to change those situations so that you can then start to get the benefits of fasting. So I just want to get some of the really easy ones out of the way. First of all, if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, now is not the time to fast. That's like very easy. Wait until you're not pregnant. Wait until you're not breastfeeding. That's a very easy one. The second is if you are severely malnourished. So if your BMI is very low, if you have a very low body fat percentage, if you know you have active nutritional deficiencies, fasting probably not a good idea. If you're somebody in the past that has done a lot of like yo-yo dieting or calorie restriction, or you've tried to lose weight by depriving the body of food, of calories, fasting also might not be the best idea until you've built some level of safety and reassurance with your body that you are going to nourish it. Because the benefits of fasting come not from not eating food, they come from having plenty of food and then giving the body a break. And it can use all of the resources that we've given it in the feeding window to get to work and do detoxification and reset the immune system and cool down the inflammation, do all of the amazing beneficial things that fasting does. So one of the things we need to be careful with, this is especially true for women. So generally, women, they're a lot more metabolically sensitive than men. Men have a lot more metabolic flexibility. A man can do a high intensity workout and not eat for several hours, and metabolically he'll still be fine. And by this I mean he can then eat a couple of hours later, he'll still get significant muscle growth. It won't create big disruptions in the stress hormone system. Overall, there's a lot of resilience there. However, women tend to be less metabolically strong. And there are advantages to this as well. This isn't a men are better than women kind of thing. Women are less metabolically flexible because they're designed to be able to give birth to children. That is an insane thing. I heard this quote the other day. It was something along the lines of, women can tune into the etheric realm, the spiritual fabric of reality, and turn it into a physical fabric of reality. They can capture this essence, this ethereal soul, and turn it into a physical manifestation. That is incredible. That is probably the most remarkable thing on all of Earth. In fact, if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have life. And doing so comes at a cost, and that is a reduced metabolic flexibility. If a woman trains and they don't eat very quickly afterwards and they don't eat sufficient protein, the body will go into a state where it starts to break down the muscle tissue and you don't actually gain muscle mass. So the point here is that fasting is more challenging to be done well for women. So some signs, some kind of red flags that maybe you shouldn't be fasting at all. This does apply to men, but this is especially if you're a woman. If you have observable hormone dysfunctions. So if you have cortisol or stress hormone imbalances, things like adrenal fatigue, then now might not be the time. If you don't have regular periods, or if your periods are like few and far between and then very painful, or any kind of irregularity in this regard, might mean fasting might not be for you right now. If you're someone that has a very dysregulated nervous system, and if your body isn't processing stress hormones very well, fasting might also be a bad idea. When we fast, our baseline stress hormones increase significantly, because we're basically running on stress hormones instead of on the food that we've eaten. And what can often happen is this baseline level of stress hormones is higher. This gives us anxiety through the day when we're fasting, blood sugar dysregulations, and very frequently poor quality sleep. If you're noticing that when you're fasting, you're sleeping bad, that's a really good sign you shouldn't be fasting just yet. It means your body isn't metabolically strong enough to be able to handle fasting. And for women in general, 24 hours is about as long as I would suggest you to go. Because again, kind of re-emphasizing, men could be a lot less careful. And maybe you would even say men could be a bit more careless. I find that it's easier for men to heal. It's easier for men to apply these things because the level of sensitivity they need to have to themselves is significantly lower than it is for women in general. Another group of people that I would be hesitant to suggest fasting for would be people that are not eating enough overall. So if you have like severe digestive problems or lots of food sensitivities and you're excluding whole food groups, like for example, if you can't digest fats very well, or if you can't digest carbohydrates very well, it's tricky because fasting could help with improving your ability to digest those foods, but also fasting is going to be extra stressful if you don't have access to these food groups. Also, if you struggle to eat enough as a whole, if your overall calorie intake is very low, you might want to reconsider if fasting is a good idea for you. So as a general rule of thumb, I would always be aiming at a minimum for women to be eating 2,200 calories a day, men to be eating 2,500 calories a day. And I don't love calories. They're not like a great metric for measuring food intake like overall, but I'm just trying to give you some rough numbers. If you're going to fast 1 day a week, so you're going to have a whole day where you're not eating any food, like I do. I fast 36 hours. So I do Thursday evening to Saturday morning. So Friday, nothing goes in my mouth. I don't eat any food. However much food I would have eaten on that day needs to be reallocated to my other 6 days where I'm eating. So for me personally, I do quite well, 2,700 to 3,000 calories a day. If I'm going to be fasting, I need to make sure that I've reallocated all of those calories on the day that I'm not eating onto the days that I am. So I'm aiming closer to 3,500 calories a day. Now I know if you've got digestive problems or food sensitivities or you're missing food groups, 3,500 calories a day sounds absolutely insane. It sounds so unachievable, and I totally understand. So what you might need to do is change the frequency of the fasting period. Maybe you're doing it every 2 weeks. Maybe you're doing it once a month. And an additional little tip that I want to give you, there are significantly more benefits to doing more frequent short-term fasting than from doing like a 5-day water fast. I know how sexy, I know how appealing it sounds to say, I'm going to do a 5-day water fast and maybe all of my symptoms will be healed by the end of it. Maybe everything will be fixed. It just doesn't happen. I really don't see this happening. And the metabolic shock that this does to your body, you're going to be recovering for 6 to 8 months after a 5-day fast. The impact on your metabolism is huge. Instead, if you were to take that 5-day fast and spread it out over 5 or 6 weeks and do 1 day a week, you're going to get 80, maybe even 90% of the benefits, and your body is going to have metabolically recovered and replenished itself 2 weeks afterwards. This is really important. I really want to emphasize this because fasting is an amazing modality, and if you can access it, then you should. But you don't have to be doing 72-hour water fasts. You don't have to take it to the extreme. Like I said, I know it's appealing. I know you can put all of your hope like, oh, everything will change after this, but it just doesn't happen. Another group of people that might want to be cautious are those that have histories with disordered eating. So if you have any kind of like eating disorder or eating disorder history, I personally do, so I can very much relate. And for me, this was an ARFID presentation. So this was a fear of food due to the fear of the negative consequence of consuming the food. So for example, I wasn't afraid of eating food. I wasn't afraid of gaining weight. I wasn't afraid of getting fat. I didn't have body dysmorphia or any of these things. It was that I was afraid that if I would eat the food, something bad would happen. And in my case, this was a somatic expression. So the bad thing that would happen would be a reaction in my body, like a digestive problem or a reaction in some way that was manifest physically in my body, like a symptom. And this is tricky because every time I fast, I see all of my inflammation come down. I see any of these little like aches and niggles and pains, they all come down. And there's a part of me that's like, well, if I just don't eat, they won't come back. And there's a part of me that wants that. So you have to be really careful. You have to make sure that you're attuned to yourself. You have to make sure you're listening to your body, because sure, there is one part of me that doesn't want to eat because I want all of my inflammation to be at a complete zero so I can just feel great. There's another part of me that's hungry. My adrenal glands are crying for nourishment. My bile wants to move. It wants to consume some fat to get that bile moving to support the detox. There are other parts of me that need different things. So it's about finding a balance. But if you do have a history of disordered eating of any type, ARFID, or if it's anorexia, bulimia, anything, you do always have to be cautious when we're imposing the mind over the body, when we're allowing the mind to control the food intake instead of allowing the body to be in control of what's being consumed, which is what I actually would encourage sort of generally on average as what health actually is. I'd also be hesitant to recommend fasting with children. So I would say the younger the child, the more hesitant that I would be. I would only really consider this to be an option potentially between the ages of 12 and 14. And then we would still be looking at very short-term fasts, probably 24 hours max. If we were doing this, I would be talking to the child and making sure they understand the point, like why they're doing it, what any like warning signs might be. But this can have negative effects. It can affect the development into puberty. It can affect their ability to grow and the height that they're supposed to grow to. It can affect all of these things. So you always have to look at it in context, but there is definitely some potential hesitation there. And finally, my last little warning when fasting might be a bad idea is if you lack attunement to yourself. So if you're somebody that is very easily influenced by outside factors, if other people's opinions kind of stick to you very easily, and if you have in the past found that you doing things that other people say are good actually end up being bad for you or end up hurting you, like taking certain supplements or eating a certain way, you should be very cautious, because fasting really only works. You only get the real benefits of fasting when you're doing it on your body's terms. If you're doing it in a way that works with your body instead of imposing yourself on your body. Because underneath all of this, underneath every healing strategy that exists, every diet plan, every supplement, under fasting, all of these things, your body is what heals you. Your body is what does all of the work. So if you're using fasting as a tool that is creating an environment that your body wants, that's going to help you heal. If you're pushing it onto your body and your body doesn't actually want it, you're actually stopping yourself from healing. You're holding your body out of a healing state. So this attunement piece is really important. And if you're not sure if you're attuned to your body or not, maybe instead of fasting, I would encourage you to explore this attunement component and try to build a deeper relationship with yourself and with your body so that you can figure out how to implement fasting in an optimal or ideal way for you. So to summarize, fasting is amazing. I absolutely love it. I do it personally. I use it with almost every single one of my clients, apart from those that fit into the categories that I've outlined today. If there's something else that I missed that you think maybe the viewers of this video should also be thinking about, do be sure to leave me a comment. I'm not perfect. I can leave things out just because I wasn't thinking about them. And if you think you're in any of these categories, if you think maybe you're in the pregnancy or breastfeeding phase, maybe you have a history of disordered eating, if you have any struggles or any experiences, I would really love to hear. Not only is it very interesting for me, I find it personally interesting, but it also helps me be a better practitioner. I'm always looking for other people's opinions to help me form a better perspective on how healing works. But also there may be other people that could benefit significantly from hearing what you have to say. So you never know who's going to read your comment and whose life you might change by just sharing a little bit about your experience. So make sure you leave me a comment below. And if you have any questions, please leave them below as well, and I'll be sure to get back to you. So that's everything for me today. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.